Just over 5 months ago, during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, a religious teacher, Abdur Rashid, was murdered in London's East End. The killing shocked the Bangladeshi community where he lived, and police and local people are hoping Crimewatch viewers may be able to help find whoever killed him. Witnesses and friends in Whitechapel have helped us reconstruct what is known about the last day of his life. But our film begins 12 miles away from where he lived, in Essex. It's lunchtime on Wednesday the 27th of April. A group of children were following a nature trail on the edge of Epping Forest.
What's that?
It was the body of 46-year-old Abdur Rashid. It had been wrapped in a bedspread, tied with a sash cord and set alight. For the Muslims, the burning of the body is the ultimate disgrace. Abdur lived in the Whitechapel district of London's East End. It contains a tightly knit Bangladeshi community which is centred around the East London Mosque. Some parts of Whitechapel are being redeveloped, and sash cord used to tie the body may have been taken from a local building site. Abdur had been killed by a sharp instrument. Evidence suggests that a traditional kitchen knife, such as this dar, might have been the murder weapon. Abdur was well known in the area as a religious teacher. He came to this country in 1979 and worked part-time in the mosque. But in 1983 he left. After that, Abdur tried to make a living by teaching the Quran in people's homes. Police know that he had several arguments over debts. He was also selling saris and trinkets to women throughout the Tower Hamlets area, sometimes when their husbands weren't at home. Police say this may have caused some resentment. He was sending money regularly back to his family in Bangladesh. On at least one occasion, a contact of his in Birmingham took it for him. Maybe somebody there knows something about his death. Ramadan is the holiest month. It began in mid-April this year. It's the evening of Tuesday the 26th of April. At about 9 p.m, Abdur asked the family he lived with if he could make a phone call.
Telephone engage.
The family remembers Abdur looking through a blue book, possibly for a number. That book has not been found. When he finally got through, the end of his conversation was overheard. Abdur left the house at about 9:30. At 10 o'clock, he usually attended the mosque for prayers. But strangely, no one seems to have seen him there that night. At about 11, Abdur visited a friend in Romford Street. He seemed nervous. Soon afterwards, he left. At about 11:30, another witness, Abdul Noor, saw him going down a staircase in a different block in Romford Street, block number 25. At about the same time, round the corner in Fordham Street, he was seen outside the Sylhet Cash and Carry. Who was he waiting for that night, and why? Sometime later, Abdur Rashid was murdered. His killers may have bought some petrol in a can, but where? His body was driven north up the A11. They probably took the Epping New Road towards the M25. In the early hours of the morning, someone may have noticed a car approaching the Robin Hood roundabout. It would have turned left towards High Beach, which is a popular area for courting couples. It would have pulled in a few hundred yards along Fairmead Road. Abdur's body was dumped just inside the wood. The flames must have been visible to any passing car. Well, Detective Superintendent Jeff Parrott is leading the inquiry into Abdur's death. Can you tell me a little bit more about what sort of man Abdur was?
Yes, upon his arrival in the country, Abdur took employment at the East London Mosque. And whilst that employment was terminated in 1983, he was still known in the community as the Holy Man. As such, he was very, very respected, and throughout this inquiry, everyone has referred to him as a good man. And with that in mind, it's a complete mystery as why anyone should wish to kill him.
What you really need most to know now is where Abdur went and what happened to him after that last sighting outside the Cash and Carry.
Yes, he obviously met someone outside the Cash and Carry, and from that point onwards, until his body was subsequently discovered, we have no sightings whatsoever.
What about the car park at High Beach, near where his body was found?
Yes, that is used every evening by courting couples, in particular, often into the early hours of the morning. It may well be, and it's distinctly possible, that couples were still parked there at the time Abdur's body was dumped and set fire to. It may well give rise to some embarrassment to people there, but I would urge them to come forward and give us what information they have. And I can only seek to emphasise that we will treat their information in the strictest confidence.
Right, you guarantee that. And you're quite sure that if somebody was there, they could well have seen something?
I'm sure they would. This burst of flame would be so obvious.
Now, you haven't yet found the blue book that he looked that telephone number up in that night. Where do you think that might be?
We haven't found that book. There's little doubt that that book contains the telephone number of the killer of Abdur Rashid.
So that's a vital clue.
It is a vital clue indeed, yes.
And the other clue is that the body was wrapped up in a bedspread, and we've had an artist draw up a detail from that. Where do you think that might come from?
We haven't traced the origin of that bedspread. It's cream with a green pattern, and little doubt about that, once we trace the origin of that bedspread, it will take us directly back to the killers of Abdur Rashid again.
So please do ring us if you recognise that bedspread. Now, thank you very much, Mr. Parrott, for the moment. Abdur Rashid's friends and associates are anxious, of course, to do everything they can to find his killers, and Abdur's 14-year-old son, Haruna Rashid, and one of the elders from the East London Mosque would like to make their own appeal in Bangladeshi.
আপনারা সবে জানেন যে মৌলানা আব্দুর রশিদ সাহেবরে মারা হইছে রোজাত এখন পর্যন্ত পুলিশে কোনো কিছু বাইর করতে পারে নাই
আমার বাবার হত্যা সম্পর্কে কেউ কোনো যদি তথ্য পাইয়া থাকেন তাহলে আপনারা দয়া প্রকাশে পুলিশকে অবগত করুন
এটা আমরা কমিটি থেকে সবে অনুরোধ করা যায় যে আপনারা আগুয়াইয়া এই পুলিশরা হৌকা এতে কোনো ড্রাইভার বা বয়ের কোনো কারণ নাই
Well, if you can help, please ring us. Here in the studio, waiting to take your call, as well as the detective here, we have a Bangladeshi speaker and a local community officer. The number, as always, to ring is 01811 8055. Or you can ring Edmonton Police Station direct on 01803 3311. That's 01803 3311.